Hello everyone, welcome to another sketching video. Today I will be sketching on black drawing paper, and this is my first time drawing on black drawing paper. And these are the tools that I'll be using. There is this box of colored pencils. This is the black drawing paper from Fabriano. The paper weight is 300 GSM, so it's quite thick, but it's not watercolor paper, so it cannot handle water media. And I will be using markers and ink pens for this sketch. So this is the reference photo, which you can download in the video description below. The ink pen I'm using is the Zig Poster Man, and this pen uses liquid ink which flows quite easily. It flows more smoothly compared to the Sakura Jelly Roll white gel pen that I usually use. So this is a good pen for quick sketching because the ink flow is fantastic. And the ink is very opaque, as you can see. And this pen comes with a fine tip, so you can draw details very easily. The paper surface is the smooth type of surface, so it works great with ink pens such as this and colored pencils. For this sketch, I started by drawing the riders on the motorbikes because they are in the foreground, and I have already measured how much space I need. So I consider the riders on the motorbike as one unit. So this sketch is a vertical sketch that requires about 3 units. And I'm placing the signboards first instead of drawing the perspective lines because I'm using the signboards as location markers. For this particular sketch, I did not draw the diagonal perspective lines to the vanishing point, which by the way is on the left side of the photo, outside of the photo. So with the signboards placed in the correct position, in the correct locations, you don't actually need to draw those diagonal lines yet. You can draw them later. Once you have all the signboards in the correct location, you can draw the background, which would be the buildings, and the perspective later on. And also by placing the signboards in the correct location, it will actually help with getting the proportion right, accurate. This scene has many overlapping elements, and that's great because when you're sketching, all these overlapping elements will create this sense of depth. You can get the sense of foreground and background very easily at a glance when looking at the sketch. So you can see me pointing to the left side outside of the page to draw those diagonal lines. I have already visualized where the VP, the vanishing point, is, so when I'm drawing those diagonal lines, I'm just drawing them to the vanishing point. This is much easier compared to drawing those diagonal lines from just observation. I'm mixing and matching the markers, the ink lines, and the colored pencils. In this case, the markers actually work really well with the colored pencils because the markers actually have some texture to the lines. So if you look closely at the thicker lines which were drawn by the markers, you can see some texture, and the texture works really well with colored pencils, which are textured. So this sketch is mostly line art. Because the paper cannot handle water media, I cannot use watercolor, and it doesn't make sense to use watercolor because watercolor is transparent. It's going to layer on top of the black paper. It's not going to look nice. If you want to use black watercolor paper, you have to use gouache or other opaque media such as opaque markers. So now I'm using the opaque markers to fill in, to block out those solid shapes. Using markers this way is going to use up a lot of ink, so you can consider using colored pencils to fill the shapes as well. The main difference between markers here versus colored pencil is the marker lines, the ink lines. They have a much stronger contrast against black paper. With colored pencils, you have to draw really hard to fill in the paper so that you don't see the paper. Now there are some lines on the street, that's the yellow box. For the yellow box, the line in the background is going to be thinner, and as the line comes towards you, the line is going to be thicker. So that's what I'm drawing here. And I'm shading the lines with colored pencils because I like the texture. There are some reflections on the ground cast by the lights, the headlights and the brake lights of the cars. I'm not sure if they work. I'm not sure if the effect that I'm drawing actually works. It looks alright, but it looks like the lights are floating on top of the paper. It looks a bit weird. So this is my first time drawing on black paper, and it's quite fun. It's always very fun to try new media, try a new style of drawing, and this is a mix of my usual style except drawn on black paper. Oh, by the way, I should mention that this time-lapse video is the condensed version of the full-length tutorial I have made for my patrons. So if you want to check out the 30-minute long tutorial, consider supporting me on Patreon to, well, support my YouTube channel. Alright, so this is how the sketch looks, and if you take a look at the top left corner, you see some random sketches and scribbles. That's me trying out the supplies on the black paper. It's always good to try out your tools and your supplies first before you use them to create like art. You don't really want any surprises. Sometimes there can be pleasant surprises, but sometimes the tools they may work in ways that you do not expect. For markers, sometimes the marker ink will just come out, like overflow out. So you have to be sure of how your tools will behave before you use them to make art. So here's a closer look at the sketch. You can see the mixed media art. The ink lines, they work really well with the colored pencils. So the ink lines are from the Zig Poster Man. The thicker lines are from the markers. The markers actually work better with the colored pencils compared to the ink lines. But the ink lines make the sketch look more, gives the sketch more contrast. It was really fun sketching this. Alright, I will continue to use the black paper for a few more drawing sessions before I put out a full review for that. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you guys again. Bye.